Hi guys, welcome back to Relatable Nerds. Kyra here, and today I am going to be breaking down episode 5 from season 2 of The Last of Us. Including this episode, we only have 3 episodes left. We are more than halfway through the season now. So much has happened in this season already. Ellie and Dina embark on their journey to Seattle, Ellie getting her revenge against Abby for what happened to Joel. And with only a few episodes left, I know they're about to up the stakes and a lot is going to happen. Everything is starting to come together. So episode 5 was called Feel Her Love, and this is alluding to the Scars prophet. They were obsessed with this woman who, at this point now in present day, had already deceased, but they worshipped this woman, and Feel Her Love is kind of their tagging and their graffiti and their slogan that they put all over Seattle. You see it quite frequently in the TV show now, and you also see it a lot in the game, and that was the title of this episode. We have a cold open start here where we see Hanrahan, who we met, is now working with the WLF leader Isaac. She's meeting up with a Sergeant Park who is overseeing the Lakehill Hospital in Seattle. Now, if you remember from episode 4, this is where Dina and Ellie overhear on the walkies that there's some battle and turf war going on. This is where this cold open is taking place, and I'm assuming this is about 5 years before present day. And these two are discussing the safety of the hospital. Apparently, Sergeant Park sent a troop down to the lowest level, the basement of the hospital, and there wasn't really any way to get in there because a lot of the elevator shafts were stuck and some of the staircases had collapsed. So there was only one specific way they could get into this basement floor, and that is going to play an important part later on in this episode. Anyways, the troop that Sergeant Park sent to look in the basement is examining it and walking through, and they realize that you can get infected from the air around cordyceps through the spores. Now, initially the spores were not included in season 1 of the game or up until this point, so I find it interesting that they are now bringing that back in because it was a huge part of the game. You have to wear those masks whenever you're around the cordyceps because you will become infected if you breathe it in, and they are realizing that right now in real time, Hanrahan and Sergeant Park. And basically, Sergeant Park says one of the soldiers that was sent to investigate the basement was actually Sergeant Park's son. And he's the one that reported all of this back to her. And they end up locking that entire group down there and they seal off the exit. Again, this is going to play an important part towards the end of this episode. But yeah, that confirms that you can become infected through breathing in the spores. We cut to Ellie and Dina, who are now at the Pinnacle Theater. Dina is looking at a map and trying to figure out all of the routes around Lakehill Hospital and all of the patrols going on. Ellie, of course, has found more guitars and she's playing some of the guitars. Dina ends up telling Ellie the way they're going to have to get over to Nora, because Nora is at Lakehill Hospital. That's what they heard through the walkies. And they're going to have to go through this warehouse. Dina says there's a big space on the map where they are not patrolling, and they come to the conclusion that this is because this warehouse is full of infected, and they will most likely be correct. So they set off for Lakehill Hospital. As they're walking, they come across more dead scars under the Feel Her Love tagging. Obviously, the WLF is behind this. It's just such a gruesome war, and Ellie and Dina are waking up more and more to it as they spend more time in Seattle. And of course, Dina has morning sickness and she's throwing up at any sight of a dead body right now. So Ellie's like, do you want to go back? I feel really guilty that you're even here with me. And of course, Dina's like, no, let's keep going. But we also get to learn a lot about Dina's childhood now. She grew up in a rural cabin outside of Santa Fe with her mother and her sister, her brother, I can't remember. And at the young age of 8, she leaves the house to just go outside and play, and she comes back to a raider murdering her family. She ends up having to pick up a gun and she shoots the raider, killing him. She uses her childhood in this story to tell Ellie if she hadn't ended up killing the raider that killed her family, she would 100% be searching for them until she did have the opportunity, which is exactly what Ellie is doing right now in finding Abby for what she did to Joel. Obviously, this is a really traumatic story to happen to Dina at just 8 years old. That's horrific. And I think it was cool to learn more of Dina's backstory and learn where she comes from. Ellie hadn't known really much of anything up until this point. It was cool to learn a little bit more about Dina and why she is so tough and intelligent. So Dina and Ellie keep on their route to Lakehill Hospital. They eventually come across the warehouse and they have to enter. Now, this is a really creepy warehouse. It's nighttime by this point, and obviously they're pretty sure that there are some infected inside. So going in here is going to be a huge risk. Upon entering and walking through it, they come across one of the smart stalkers like we saw attack Ellie earlier in the season in the grocery store. They're smarter than the average stalker or infected. They're not just running around like a crazy person. They can kind of hunt and creep and follow them if they want, and it does make it a lot more intense. At first, they only think they see one smart stalker, but they end up seeing so many that Ellie tells Dina to run and kind of lock herself in this cage, and she ends up running and making it and closes herself off so none of the infected can get her, and Ellie just starts shooting them one by one, but it's obvious that there's way too many of them, and they start to close in on Ellie and Dina. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear a shotgun and we see another person, and initially it looks like Tommy, but they extend their hand to help pick up Ellie, and it is Jesse. I yelled out his name when he entered the scene. He really arrived at a perfect moment because Ellie and Dina were about to die in that warehouse. So he definitely saved the day. He helps them escape the warehouse and they quickly run out, but they run right into the WLF's patrol lights. So now the WLF sees them. They keep running away from the warehouse, and Jesse says, "Let's go into this park." But the WLF stops right before entering this park because the park is Scar territory. WLF do not want to enter Scar territory because they know the lay of the land, and that just gives them free reign to attack them. So Jesse, Dina, and Ellie run into this park, not realizing it's where the Scars are. We come to find out that Jesse also came to Seattle with Tommy, and they decided to split up, and they will rally and meet each other back up in the morning. Jesse ended up finding their map and everything at the Pinnacle Theater, and that's how he found. They're walking a little bit in this park and they start to hear people talking. They come across a group of Scars who have a WLF member like on a noose, and he's not quite dying yet. They just have him there, but one of the Scars gets this like crazy knife and he just tears him open, right? Like stomach down, and all of his intestines fall off, and they continue to hang him. And Ellie, Dina, and Jesse witness this, and they're like, holy shit, like these people are crazy. And of course, at that moment, the Scars realize that somebody is there with him. You start hearing all of the whistles like we heard back in episode 3. Next thing you know, there's bow and arrows in the air, and one of the arrows hits Dina's leg. So now Dina can't even walk. Jesse immediately scoops her up, and Ellie, Jesse, and Dina start running away from the Scars. It's a really, really intense scene because it is at nighttime and there's just bows and arrows going off. Ellie and Jesse are trying to shoot as they're running. And so Jesse is with Dina now, and Ellie is alone. She kind of gets caught up, trips and falls, and she's hiding from the Scars. The Scars end up not fighting them at all, but now Ellie is split up from Jesse and Dina. She ends up right at the end of the park grounds, but sees a sign over there that says Lakehill Hospital, and she heads off in that direction. Now we know Nora is at Lakehill Hospital. Nora was one of Abby's friends that was at the scene of Joel's death, and obviously if Ellie can locate Nora, maybe she can find out where Abby is. We cut to the hospital and we see Nora helping somebody in the hospital, and she's walking back and Ellie is following her. She ends up cornering her in this room, tells her to drop everything she's holding. Nora turns around and Ellie's like, "Do you remember me?" And it's a really good, intense start to this scene, and you could just feel Ellie's emotions, and she's just fuming. She almost has smoke coming out of her head because, you know, she's coming face to face with somebody that was at the scene of the crime with killing Joel. This is what she's been waiting for. There's just so much adrenaline in this scene. Obviously, Nora remembers who she is. Ellie starts asking her where Abby is. Nora says she's not going to tell her. A lot of people are very loyal to Abby in this game, and Nora ends up making a pretty shitty comment about Joel, saying he was like a little bitch when he died. And then she ends up throwing something at Ellie and runs off, and they start a chase, and Nora tells two of the security that she's there like to shoot her, and they're running through the hospital. and Nora runs right into a dead end. There's like nowhere to go because it's barricaded off, and she sees to her left there's an elevator shaft that she can jump into. Now, remember the beginning of this episode when we saw Hanrahan and Sergeant Park talking together? Sergeant Park mentioned the basement of Lakehill Hospital is completely infected. There's spores down there. So this is not a good place to end up. And obviously Nora doesn't really have a choice. Nora ends up jumping into the elevator shaft. Abby ends up finding her. They both end up on the basement floor of the hospital. Immediately you see all of the spores in the air, and you see just these crazy like tendrils and cordyceps infection, fungal virus all over the walls, that bright orange white color just barricading everything amongst all of the spores in the air. Ellie is walking through the hospital trying to find Nora. She starts hearing like her coughing and coughing because obviously Nora is not immune. Ellie isn't even slightly wheezing at this point, and she ends up finding somewhat of like a light generator that turns on these red lights, which really adds even more intensity. It made it even more creepy because they're both alone on this floor of the hospital right now. Ellie ends up finding Nora, another dead end, and she's on the floor coughing, and Nora's like, we're infected now. She's realizing that Ellie isn't even coughing, like she doesn't look sick at all. She looks completely fine. She realizes that Ellie is immune. Ellie is the girl that everybody has been talking about, the one that has immunity that they've all been seeking, obviously, since way back when Joel killed everybody on that hospital floor. Obviously, she knew this at this point, but I think it kind of hit her right then again just to see an immune person in real life for the first time, because up until that point, nobody has been immune. Just so to actually witness somebody breathing in the spores and not getting sick, it truly is kind of like an eye-opening moment for anybody existing at that time. Nora ends up telling Ellie everything about the hospital. She ends up telling her how Joel killed everybody on the hospital floor, and one of the doctors was Abby's father. It's her last cry for help to try to get Ellie to understand why Abby did what she did, and Ellie just responds, I know. Now, is Ellie lying, or does Ellie really know what Joel did that day? Either way, she's still set on one thing, and she asks her again, where is Abby? Nora refuses to tell her, so Ellie picks up this like metal rod and just starts hitting Nora like in the legs, and she's saying, where is Abby? Boom, hits her again. Where is Abby? No answer. Boom, hits her again. And that is how that scene cuts out. It was one of my favorite scenes of this season so far. The emotion that Bella Ramsey brought to that scene, how intense and adrenaline ridden it was. Nora was great as well, just being the antagonist and really reminiscent of the game. And then this episode decided to pull at all of our heartstrings, and we see Ellie, who's younger at this point, wake up out of bed, and we see somebody open the door to her bedroom, and it's Joel, and he says, hi, kiddo. That is how this episode ends. Oh, this next episode 6 is going to have us all in tears. I was clutching my heart. I'm finally going to get some flashback scenes of Joel and Ellie, and I saw the previews already for the next episode. So many beautiful moments between Joel and Ellie that are surely going to be emotional, but so necessary for Ellie's journey. Ellie's journey of grief, of revenge, why she's doing everything she's doing, these moments she has with Joel that are constantly playing back to her, that are probably playing back in her dreams. This is why she's doing what she's doing, and I can't wait for this next episode. I enjoyed episode 5 so much. It was so gritty, from all of the killing scenes, from seeing the scars in action and how they kill people and how they kill the WLF when they catch them, hearing those whistles that you just can't get out of your mind once you hear them, and it's just so alarming and puts you at the edge of the seat while you're watching. Love that we got a little backstory on Lakehill Hospital at the beginning of the episode as well, to learn why the basement was full of infected and bringing in the spores into this season. I'm glad they did that because it's a huge part of the game and it makes this virus even more intense. I love that Jesse has joined the crew finally. He seems just so frustrated with both Dina and Ellie, and we know Tommy is near as well. Now, I mentioned in my last recap, the game differed here. Tommy did originally go after Abby and company right after Joel's death, and Ellie, Dina, and Jesse followed thereafter. So things are kind of a little backwards here, but I think now it's starting to all come together. Bella Ramsey did such a phenomenal job bringing the emotion and the grittiness and the adrenaline and her anger. You could feel Ellie fuming through that screen over her love and her want of revenge for Joel, and the way she kills Nora with a metal rod to make it really hurt and stick to her. Getting into gritty Ellie from The Last of Us Part 2 game. Ellie in this season so far has not been this intense. She has not been this evil or upset or mad. And again, I hate to be that in the game. It's like this. But in the game, Ellie is a lot more intense. She's pissed off at the world for losing somebody again that's close to her. She doesn't have a lot of people in her life that are close to her. And we're finally feeling that wrath. And Bella Ramsey did a phenomenal job. I'm super, super excited to see the last 2 episodes of this season. Let me know what you guys thought of episode 5. And let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen in these next few episodes. How do you think The Last of Us Season 2 is going to end? Thank you again so much for tuning in to all of my breakdowns and reactions. It's been so much fun, such an incredible series. God, I love this game so, so, so much. Thanks again for tuning in, you guys. Bye.